All right, good evening, everyone. I have 8 o'clock on my watch here, so we're going to go ahead and get started. If you can hear me speaking right now, if you look underneath the participant list, you should see a hand, a green check mark, and a red X. Go ahead and click on the green check mark if you can hear me, just so that we can get an idea of who's connected. Wow, I see a lot of green check marks. Perfect. All right. I'd like to welcome you all to the fourth and final webinar in UC Irvine Extension's second annual GATE webinar series. Tonight's topic is Classroom Applications of 21st Century Skills, presented by Beth Andrews. This live session is being recorded. If you registered for this webinar through our free events website, you should receive an email with a link to the recording, as well as a PDF copy of the PowerPoint presentation within 24 hours. My name is Lisa Katawaki, and I am a program representative here at UC Irvine Extension. Tonight, I am logged in on behalf of my director, Angela Jonte. This slide you see on your screen shows an outline of what we will be doing in the next hour. First, I'll start off with a quick overview of WebEx features so that you'll know how to submit questions to our keynote speaker throughout the presentation. I will then pass it over to Beth Andrews, who is our presenter tonight. Beth will be presenting on tonight's topic, Classroom Applications of 21st Century Skills. Next, I will give a short description of UC Irvine Extension's Gifted and Talented Specialized Studies program. If you are interested in gaining continuing education credit for this webinar series, please stay until the end to hear about the credit option we are offering. If time permits at the end of Beth's presentation, we will spend the remaining time answering any questions that you may have. Finally, at the end of the webinar, I will leave you with my contact information. If you encounter any technical difficulties during the webinar tonight, please shoot a chat message over to UCI Amanda, and she will help you troubleshoot any issues. If you have a question for myself or Beth regarding the content of this presentation, please submit it in the Q&A box, and we will address it at the end if we have time. So if you look at the top of the participant list on the right-hand side of the screen, you should see a row of icons. Press on the question mark icon and the Q&A panel will show up. Please feel free to submit questions throughout the presentation, but we will address them at the end of the webinar. Tonight's presenter is Beth Andrews. She is the GATE coordinator for Irvine Unified School District and is also the Orange County Educator Representative for the California Association for the Gifted. She has worked with gifted learners for 26 years, and we are very lucky to have her present for us tonight. She will be speaking to you on the topic, Classroom Applications of 21st Century Skills. So now I'm going to go ahead and hand the presenter ball over to Beth. And there you go.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. I hope you can still hear me. I'm really glad to see so many names that are registered, and I already see some questions out there. We'll get to those at the end of the presentation. One of the things Lisa didn't mention is that I'm also a classroom teacher. I teach 6th grade, and I've taught quite a few grades, and this is really an exciting time to be an educator with 21st century learning skills. Specific for gifted students, the 21st century learning skills are really basically the skills that we encourage for gifted learners anyway. The layer that's added on top of that is with technology. So I'm going to switch over here. This is a picture of John Dewey. John Dewey was an educator in late 1800s, but in 1899 he said, if we teach today as we taught yesterday, we rob our children of tomorrow. And I think it's really a significant statement if you think about John Dewey in 1899 saying this, and yet today we still do a lot of things in our classrooms that really are teaching how we taught yesterday. If you think about transporting a doctor from 1904 and placing him in an operating room today, do you think that he'd be able to use the tools that he found? And if so, would you want him treating you? And then the other question is, would you rather him treating you with the tools from the turn of the century, that healing knowledge that was back then? Most of us would say no. However, if you took a teacher from the same time period, would that teacher feel comfortable? And probably yes, because very little has changed in our classrooms and how we operate our classrooms today. But the learning needs of our students are profoundly different. In fact, our students are profoundly different. So if we're teaching the same way as we taught 100 years ago, and our students are different, and there's a lot that's out there that we are supposed to be teaching them in a different format because of the way that they're wired, then we need to really look at what's available to us in this 21st century. The dates on this are a little bit off on this next slide for our children's future. The kindergartners today are actually, they're going to be the class of 2022. The children that are born today are going to retire in the year 2067 to it's actually 2085. Can you imagine what the world is going to be like then? There's a video, it's a 9-minute video, but if you go to this site on your free time, it's called A Peek at the Future. You'll get a chance to see all the way up to what they think the world will be like when these children are at retirement age. And a lot of that information seems pretty logical, but it makes it a little scary as well thinking about today what we're in charge of in our classrooms. The speed of technology is moving at an exponential pace. 80% of the jobs that exist today didn't exist in 1996. Now, you can find a lot of information out there that would refute that would say, well, tell me exactly what those jobs are. And I did start researching the jobs, and there are quite a few, but it's difficult to say like 80% of the numbers and putting that quantitative piece to it. But, yeah, I don't think we can argue the fact that there's a lot of jobs that are available today that we didn't even know about in 96. I'd say there's a lot of jobs today that we didn't even know about in the year 2000. This part about taking 7 years for known science to reach high school textbooks is actually true. That known science that occurs, it'll take 7 years before it actually reaches the textbooks, and it could be even longer. Today, we know the information immediately between the Internet and Twitter and all the things that are out there. If something has taken place at 8 o'clock in the morning, pretty much by about 8:30, most of the people who are logged on will know about it, and then the way that information spreads really quickly, by the end of the day, I would say almost everybody would know about that. Well, that is a generalization to say almost everybody, but quite a few people. But yet in our textbooks, for the future scientists, it'll take 7 years for them to hear about this information and to actually study it. So our textbooks are a little outdated. This is kind of a powerful thing to think about. Does it provide interaction? And I think we should add the word consistent and instant feedback, collaboration, and customized curriculum. Customized curriculum means for each student. And everything that we're teaching, is it applicable for their life skills? Do we level up the instruction according to the student's ability? And we know that the best strategies is that bar is raised slightly higher. Do we allow for the students to make decisions, that need for decision making? Are all of our students engaged because the learning experiences we provide are engaging? Are they motivated to learn? Do they connect emotionally? Now, I think that we can all say that this happens a lot during the entire school year. But does it happen a lot in one single day? And that's something to ponder. We know that playing video games does provide consistent problem-solving skills, personal literacies, organizational skills. Now, you might not agree with that, especially if you're thinking about a child's desk or room. However, when they do play video games, they are organizing. The ability to strategize and the critical thinking skills. All of these skills, eye-hand, collaboration, multitasking, decision-making, hypothesizing, we want these kids to be able to do this on an ongoing basis. Does it provide the pleasure and the fun? Are they running home and wanting to get their books open and begin on their homework, or are they coming home from school and wanting to plug in? There's no question as to why they would prefer a video game over an educational worksheet or an educational comprehension question. This is taken from Mark Prensky's work in 2006. What kids can learn from video games, the idea of systems, social interaction, and if you have not played a video game or watched a video game in the last couple years, playing video games now requires a headset where they're actually communicating with people that they might not know, and they might not even be in this country, but they're working together. I don't know, maybe, not that we'd approve of them killing zombies or whatever the game requires them to do, but they are working together and communicating those skills so that they are on the same team and they can get the same job accomplished. Economics and business lessons, cooperation, ethics. They say that even with Grand Theft Auto, skills, to be proactive instead of reactive, to begin with the end in mind instead of just going from one moment to the next and discovering there's a crisis that happened that they couldn't plan ahead for, to prioritize, to think win-win, to seek first to understand and then to be understood, to synergize and to sharpen the saw. But then they go to school where they're required to sit and listen and take notes, read the textbook, answer some recall questions, write some responses, use a rubric. This is what you have to do to get the A. Wait for others to catch up, watch the clock, and do what is told, which we know that not all students want to be told what to do. And we also want our future leaders of the world to be able to think about what they're being asked to do. The tests that we are putting so much weight on are multiple choice tests oftentimes. They ask them to apply one strategy. Do your own work. We don't want the kids borrowing other people's work, but yet their future is going to actually ask them to take information that they've already learned about, or maybe that's already out there, and apply it to new situations. So we've got to teach them that at a young age. But they do get bored at school, and we know that sometimes they get into trouble at school, especially if they're bored. So how do we compete, and how do we make it so that they want to go to school for the excitement? Digital natives e-world. Now, I'm not a digital native. I'm a digital immigrant. Many of you out there are probably digital immigrants. That means that it's not your first language. But for our kids, for our students, they grew up with the e-world. This is how they communicate. They communicate through instant message or chatting or email or blogs or texting. And probably as we're speaking, there's a new way for them to communicate. They share information. They can share information where they're talking to each other on the computer, and they can look at each other and play a video that applies to whatever it is that they're talking about, and it's instantaneous. The way they buy and sell via eBay and Craigslist, they can exchange music and videos, and of course their humor, just at a moment's notice. And not only that, there's a whole world of resources out there that they can share music and videos with. It's no longer going out and buying in my day, the album, or in their days, buying even the CD. The way they create. It's interesting because this information was taken from 2005, but the avatars, quite popular information now. And in fact, I was just thinking today about, there's a new, it's not so new, it's been out for a couple of years, but it's called a Pico projector. And you can hook it up to your iPod, and what that does is it reflects the image onto a wall, and it'll make it about a 60-inch by 60-inch. And I was thinking about all the uses that my students would be able to use that for in the classroom. And then I came across somebody's brilliant idea about how they could use those Pico projectors. If you can reflect the image onto the wall, well, you certainly can reflect that image onto your hand. And then you get into the next level of, now it's avatars, but what will it be in the year 2020? Anyway, they meet through chat rooms and wikis. They coordinate projects. They work in groups. A lot of opinions and evaluating what they're doing, and the gaming. Learning by individual interests. What a concept, instead of what is asked every single day. Now, that doesn't mean that they get to learn whatever they want, because there are certain standards we want them to learn, but it could be learning about what the standards are, but in a way or a method that they want to learn it. Evolving is through emergent behaviors. Programming's open systems. So I'll skip on ahead. Just a little technology humor. Senator, this is Trent, your Twitter surrogate. He'll be making you seem less archaic. And I do know actually there are, maybe it's even Obama now, but there are people out there who have hired others to be their Twitter person to update their comments on a regular basis. What we know is, now this is the x-axis on the bottom, the instructional practices, the y-axis, student engagement. If the instructional practices are moving toward the 4, and if you look at the chart below, you see in the first column, engagement, cognitive investment, instructional style, authenticity. The 1 column is disengaged and passive, instructionist, no value. And you move on up to the 4 value where it's intellectual engagement, academically rigorous, knowledge building, responsive, conforms to the learners, and value beyond school. Our goal is to have the instructional practices at the 4, and that we can get the cognitive investment, the instructional style, the authenticity of the students also at that 4. If we can have the teachers' cognitive investment, instructional style, and authenticity at the 4. Now, that intellectual investment means that the work is more challenging. It absorbs their attention. It allows them to be creative. In fact, they get energy because it asks them to be creative. It requires a thought process. It demands that they analyze and synthesize and conjecture and reason judgment, creation and innovation. It's energizing. It's to the point where when it's time to stop, it's difficult to get students to stop because they want to keep going. The instructional style, that's the teacher's fully present and responsive, but the teacher is not the one that's providing all of the information. The teacher is not the repository of information. The teacher basically is the facilitator, but that teacher is there and able to respond when the learning is ready. It's called just-in-time learning. It's just in time for when they need it. The authenticity, they have to see how the tasks and the activities are relevant. If they're not relevant to the student's world, in the real world, then they don't understand the purpose of learning it. And it's not that just-in-time kind of learning. It's more like, here's some information, you might need this one day. But with their world, the way that information is so quick, they're not going to dig it out to say, okay, I need it today, even though I learned it 2 years ago. They want to learn it right now because they need to know it right now. I know that's not the real world, but that's the way that our students want to learn information. John Dewey, back in 1899, educators must relate the school to life, and all studies are of necessity correlated. That basically means if there's relevance in what they're learning, then all the rest is pretty much, it's going to fall into place because they can see how they need to know this. They need to learn it and how it applies. That was in 1899. It just still surprises me. John Dewey was quite a person with a vision. Also, to remember that to be playful and serious at the same time is possible, and it defines the ideal mental condition. So we know with brain research, which from the 1990s on up, now that was 100 years after John Dewey, but from that point, they didn't have the brain research in 1899. We had it in 1999, and we know that when we tap into the emotional piece of an individual's brain, the learning is memorable. It's retained. So how do we tap into it, make it fun, and make it interesting? The skills that are integrated with 21st century learning, I won't go through all of this, but you can read through that. But it's not because the teacher wants them to do this. It's not because the test asks them for this information. They're doing all of these skills because they want to gain the knowledge. They want to gain that knowledge because they're going to be applying it, and they're going to be applying that knowledge in different situations. And that is their future. Let me get back to you, Mort. Apparently this new phone has a time travel function I wasn't aware of. The technology that we have today is mind-boggling. It's an infowhelm of not just information, but of technology. I guess it's a technowhelm as well. If you go on right now to look at, maybe some of you are multitasking, but if you go and you're looking at what is available, there's every single day there's something that's new that's out there that you can use in your classroom. It is pretty much overwhelming. So now we're going to go to, how do we get there? How is it that we can make it work in the classroom? Oh, not yet. I said now, but we have one more slide before I get there. This is just the difference between the digital immigrants, that's me, it might be you, and the digital natives, your children or children in your classroom. We go conventional speed. They're at Twitch speed. We like to process things step by step, and they're random access. It's not, they might be just grabbing a whole bunch of pieces. They might go from A to M, and then go to C, and then back to R, and then maybe Z. Linear processing. We do things one step at a time, going, okay, now this is done, now we go to the next one. The digital natives are parallel processing, and it's sort of like multitasking, except for, well, I guess it is kind of like multitasking, but they're pulling in information. They're actually using the information. They find the link that goes to it. They might be watching a video at the same time that they're downloading some music that applies to the video, at the same time that they're studying the same information. They're reading an article about that. So they're getting all of this information from multiple sources. We tend to go text first, and actually we like black text on white background. Students today go graphics first. That means they're looking at the images, and they also prefer bright colored on bright colored background. So to me, it almost hurts my eyes to see a neon pink on a bright blue background. But that for the way that their brain is connecting that information, that's how it's the most pleasurable. I don't know if you've gone to look to see how to do something in the last few, I'd say months, but maybe even a year, and you get the video. It's like, no, I don't want the video. I want just the manual. Give me the manual that says, do this first, do this next. I want to learn how to do this and be able to skip through information. The digital natives, they want the video. They want the image. Then they'll go back and look at the book. Work-oriented. Ours is like, it's serious time. We're working now. Don't mix pleasure with play. Work with pleasure. If you're going to play, you go outside, you play. When you're working, you're sitting at your desk working. Don't listen to music because that might add pleasure to it, to what you're working on, and it might distract you. But digital natives are play-oriented. They want it to be fun. They're not opposed to learning, but they want it to be fun learning. Google, you might have heard of that company, actually has quite an interesting work system where they're playing. They take time and they really just mess around and play. But it's through that play time that ideas come forward. Ours, digital immigrants, stand alone. We work alone. We want to do this. This is my part. Here's my part. Giving it to you now. That's your part. Whereas digital natives, they're very connected, not just in the social world, but also in the work world. So this is, if we lift the ceiling for achievement, so basically back on to what our goal is for all students, but specifically for gifted learners, First, educators must address those ideas of standards and accountability. We have to do that on one hand, and the abilities and the preference of the digital learners on the other. Now, if we can do this, we can really create these engaged environments where students want to learn. And it'll allow us as educators to address both the standards and the preference for their learning environment simultaneously. Not only that, but it'll maximize the achievement for all children. So, and then the last rung of this is the final rung, the achievement ladder, the sense of self. We often treat that sense of self as a soft measure of the success that technology offers the schools, and some people find that it's only the hard data that can be used to demonstrate the benefit of technology on that student achievement. But we should stop apologizing for citing examples of improved student attitudes towards schooling. And we know that studies show that when technology and inquiry become routine parts of a student's school experience, their attendance improves, the dropout rates decline. The more years that students attend school, obviously, the better their chance for success in their future. And what's more, the number of years that they spend in school, it's a better predictor of success in later life than test scores. Actually, there was a study done at Stanford University that substantiates that. When asked to factor technology into their successes, the Apple Classrooms of Tomorrow students commonly said that technology helped them to develop confidence, and it added the types of the collaborative and ambitious projects that they'd enjoyed being engaged in, and it resulted that it helped them to believe in themselves, and it also helped them to look for higher levels of achievement. Moving on. Oopsie, I went too fast. So I get it, but how do I do it? Well, I'm a firm believer if you build it, they will come. That means provide the resources. Now, even if you're not completely sure how to do it, you still put it out there, and the students actually will figure it out. If we wait until we have everything figured out, it's almost too late. In the early 1990s, I wrote a grant and then had the Internet in my classroom. It was one of the first classrooms to have it in our district. It was funded by an outside company, and the goal was I would learn how to use the Internet and then be able to teach other educators. Well, I had Internet. It was a dial-up, and I used it for probably non-educational purposes back then. I'm sure it was actually for Scrabble or something really important. But when I brought it into the classroom, the question that was from a lot of people, what are you going to do with it with your students? And I didn't know yet. And that's what I said. I don't know yet, but I know that there's an educational resource. There's a tool. This is a tool we can use with the students in our classroom. And oddly enough, I had a student that very year who was fascinated by the cloning of Dolly, the cloning of the Dolly sheep. I'm not sure if you remember that. To the point where he was so excited about it, there was nothing that I could do because I was not equally fascinated by the sheep. I didn't really understand all the steps that were going on. So he'd come in every day so excited about it, and there was an Ask the Expert on the Internet. So I said, why don't you connect to an Ask the Expert, and then you'll get a chance to talk to a genetic researcher or a genetic physicist and see what's going on, and maybe you can have your questions answered. So for an hour every week, that's what he did. He connected to somebody on Ask an Expert and would just be so excited and motivated to talk about the Dolly cloning the Dolly sheep. But if I waited until I fully understood how Internet could be used in the classroom, it would have been years down the road. So if you build it, they will come. Prepare for scholarly learners. So that basically means if we kind of take it down a notch to make sure everybody's going to be okay and everybody will get the right answer and everybody will understand it, not everybody will be engaged. So instead, if the lessons are designed around those big ideas or controversial issues or multiple layers of expertise are necessary, those essential questions, they're everywhere in our curriculum. And actually, if you look at the standards are designed around big ideas. So if we just even use those standards but not check it off the box and say, did that one, covered that one, instead say, okay, here's the big question. This is the big question of the day. Let's take a look at it now, and you get opportunities, these are the students, get the opportunities to see how they're going to demonstrate that they get the big ideas, that they understand it. It's always important to ask for help, and I'm not talking about going out and finding another adult or another staff member or colleague to help you. I'm talking about for the students. I do this all the time. I say, okay, I have this new tool. I've never tried it. It looks really awesome. Let's give it a go. I'm going to probably make some mistakes, so help me along the way. And that shows them I'm actually modeling risk-taking. They think if I can admit that I don't know everything, then they could also possibly admit that they don't know everything. If I can admit that I'm just going to go for it, then I have a lot of ground to stand on when I say, hey, take a risk, try it, see if it works. If it doesn't work, we'll figure out what didn't work and then work around those That's called problem solving. When the students, though, if they think they have a stake in the learning part, automatically lifts that ceiling. And if you don't, if you think about yourself in a situation with somebody that was above you as far as the work world, or I don't know, maybe in a classroom situation or something, and if they basically mandated that you do something, chances are you're going to be less excited about doing it. However, if you're the one that comes forward and says, you know what, I noticed there's an issue here, I'd like to try this. And if it's like, okay, well, and the person can ask the right questions. Have you thought this all the way through as far as what's going to happen if this happens? But you'll have a much bigger stake in it if it's something that you have some voice. These are all of the resources out there that are free, almost. The only thing that's not free is down at the bottom, the iTunes Music, but it's a minimal expense. The rest is free, and it's at our fingertips. The iTunes podcasts, video, wikis, digital stories, shared lessons that other teachers put out there. iTunes U. iTunes U is an awesome resource, especially for students. Web quests, internet interactives, game templates. Now, the iTunes Music, it's like 99 cents for a song, up to $1.29 per song. And the songs are really important, especially, well, actually, even with younger kids, music definitely taps into that emotional part. So a wiki, if you're not familiar with a wiki, it's a place, it's basically like, think about a locker. At a school, you have a locker, and you can keep all sorts of things in that locker. A wiki is kind of like that, but it's a collaborative website, and anybody can go on there that has been invited as a member, and they can edit the work that's on there. And what it does is it allows for a lot of different people working on a similar document or something that's similar. You can have videos, you can put music on there, all kinds of things. This is my class's wiki. It's called Funfetti. And each student has been invited to be a member. Each student, if you look on that column, it says Welcome to Funfetti, and to the left side, that blue column going down, has their own page for there, and it goes off onto a second page alphabetically. I have 32 students in my class. So what the kids do is, those are their pages, and if they're working on a project, which this is school, so they're working on projects all the time, they have groups for almost every project they're working on. They post what it is they're working on, and they just have kids go right to that wiki space, and everybody can make changes on there and modify it or add video or upload whatever they want to change on there. Now you'll notice this is our home page. This is the page that the kids join in, log on. At the top it says home page. It says discussion, history, notify me, and edit. There are 121 discussion comments just on this home page. But if you go, you don't get to, but if you were able to go to each of the students' home pages, you'd notice all of the back and forth discussion that takes place. And I would say about 80% of the discussion is relevant and pertinent to the academic field. The other 20% it's not negative. It's just that it might be that, kind of silly comments or talking. They're too young for Facebook, so it started to become a Facebook. What this requires for my time is it used to be every day initially, just to make sure that the kids knew that I was also an active member on this wiki space. Now I probably go on about once a week, but all I have to do is I go to recent changes. It's under the F of Funfetti. If you follow that down, it says new page, recent changes. I just click on recent changes, and it tells me the date and the time and who made any changes, and then I can look at the changes that were made. So for a while I had to take off some MTV, Taylor Swift music videos, and I had to take off some. It was nothing was inappropriate. It just I didn't want this to be their Facebook page. I wanted this to be a workspace. But now it's with more projects going on, it's definitely a workspace. So each student has their own. They can add video and audio documents, graphics, images, everything. Lots of discussions take place on this site. And I can also add things on there and tell the students to go to the wiki and take a look at whichever page. Multimedia and visual representation. So podcasting just comes from two words, iPod and broadcasting. It allows kids to make videos. They can do historical reenactments, parodies, all kinds of things. We actually have two videos going on right now. We're studying ancient China. So we went on the Silk Road, and we brought in all these resources, and we studied the Silk Road. So the assignment was that they were going to take their own journey on the Silk Road and sell their goods, whatever it was that they decided to sell on the Silk Road, and they had to provide a commercial. In years past, their commercial took place with a piece of construction paper, and maybe they bedazzled it or something and added to it, and a little bit of humor, and they acted out the commercial. This year, the commercial is taking place with cameras and video, small video cameras you can use with, actually, the flip camera is outstanding. I don't have those in my classroom, but it's an excellent resource. I'm hoping to get those soon. But the nano iPods have the cameras in them. I have about 8 iTouch iPods that I've written grants for, and those they don't have a camera yet. Eventually they will, but right now they don't. But they do have a microphone, and the microphones are really outstanding. In fact, I tested it out. I was outside on a windy day, going on a walk, and tested it, and you couldn't hear the wind in the background. It was really the quality was excellent. Then they take that and they can upload or download it to iTunes and make their own videos and add the voice and music. It's amazing, and they're so excited about using these tools and these resources. Now, Microsoft Windows Movie Maker, it's free. If you have Macs also has iMovie, which is phenomenal. They also have GarageBand, which allows kids to do all kinds of things with the music and even the vocal. There's Audacity, which is for Microsoft. And then there's also Digital Stories, which is another way for visual representation. I told you there's so much out there. This could be a 3-week webinar. But using the tools, not just using the cameras and things that are out there, you could actually assign a Wikipedia as your assignment. So they're going to design a Wikipedia entry for whatever it is that you're studying at the time. So pretend that you're going to be adding this to a Wikipedia, and if you're not familiar with Wikipedia, it's an online encyclopedia. The interesting part about the Wikipedia is Encarta came out many years before Wikipedia, and they paid people to make an online encyclopedia. This was Encarta, and people could buy Encarta. And then they offered for free. They didn't pay anybody. They said anybody who wants to can put their own entry for a Wikipedia definition or whatever they want to do. They could do it for themselves if they wanted to, and it was free. No one was going to get paid. Everybody could have it for free. It was there. And yet that by far surpassed Encarta. And actually there's a 97% accuracy rate with Wikipedia, which is pretty impressive considering, I could go on there right now. I used to warn my students, you can't use Wikipedia as a resource, as your only resource, because it's not always accurate, because people could put whatever they wanted on there. But what we've discovered is that people are actually, for the most part, putting the truth. So that's pretty interesting. They could make podcasts about whatever you're talking about, and what on the column on it says assign, evaluate. The evaluate pieces, ways that they could be evaluated. The teach piece is what they're actually learning in addition to the information of the content. Instant message. Instant message uses really kind of abbreviated language, so it's a great discussion on informal versus formal language. And it's actually kind of tricky to do if you're asking them to talk about some, like the Forbidden City, since we're talking about ancient China, but using only instant message. Digital. I mentioned the digital photo stories. There's all kinds of free resources out there, and they can they can put music, they can add voice, they can add pictures, and it moves and tells this beautiful story, or sometimes a humorous story. And it looks like it's a movie, but it's actual just still pictures, but the pictures are moving. Free. This is, actually this is kind of cool. This is called a glog. there's two things on it. It's a wiki space. The wiki space is called Web Tools for You to Use, and it's an excellent resource. It's free, and you can join on. You don't even have to join on. You still can go to look at all the things that they have to offer. But if you join on, then you're able to do a little bit more. But what I discovered from this was Glogster. If you look at the top right corner, it says Glogster. This wiki space page is made with it's called a glog, and it's sort of like a glorified scrapbook. But you notice the little button here, it says click here for music. There's another button that with the arrow on it, that's a video. You can upload videos and music, and you can add text to it and pictures and frames. It's pretty easy to do, but it's really exciting and fun. We started a glog with our Wikispaces Funfetti, and it's almost addicting with the students. To me, if they're going to be online, I'd really love the fact that they're going to be online using the tools that they're going to. If these tools aren't there for them in 5 years, it's going to be something that's newer, better, greater, easier, cleaner. So at least they've learned from the tools that are available to them now. Thousands of podcasts, thousands, audio and video. We know from what was mentioned earlier that the digital kids, digital natives, prefer to have video, the graphics. So it's much better if there's a video that's attached to what they're learning more so than the audio. The nice part about the audio, though, is you can have them, if they're working on something, they can actually be listening to something else at the same time. It's not always the best, though, having two things going on at the same time. And you can also have them listening to an audio but taking notes. This is iTunes U. This is on iTunes, and it's just a really, I wonder if I could go back to, no, I can't go back to it. Okay. iTunes U it's a button that you click on the top of iTunes, and all I can tell you is that it's an amazing resource. You can take from multiple, this is from Virginia, but multiple school districts and states are involved. This is Virginia Department of Education. All kinds of colleges have you can listen to a college level discussion going on, or find some resources that it's just specific for kids in K-12. So how do you use the podcast and the iTunes U? You research the topic, download whatever's there. You can do this either way. Maybe you already know about the applications, but I usually like to research the topic first and then get the materials and then think, what am I going to do with this? What is it that how can we apply these resources? Then I write the need-to-know question. What is the big idea? What is the essential question? Oftentimes it's from what I've gotten out of the standards, but sometimes it's something I've come across and I think, oh, that would be an outstanding question. And then I begin the project. So the planning process. When we started, actually when I made this podcast, we were studying ancient India. We always start with the textbook. I never thought I'd get kids excited about a social studies textbook. I'm sorry if you're a history major, but I wasn't excited about my social studies textbook as a student. But the kids actually are very excited. I always say this is the most amazing book. It was written for your age with all the standards for your grade level that some scientists and psychologists have researched to see what is the most important information for somebody who is 11 years old or 12 years old. And here it all is for you in textbook form. So we always start with the foundation, the textbook, and it takes about 2 to 4 class periods depending on what it is that we're studying. For ancient India, it was 2 class periods to read through a very significant amount of text. That doesn't sound, maybe it sounds like a lot, but that's the foundation, that's the base. And then we move on, collecting up all the resources. I typed into iTunes ancient India, and I'll show you what came up once I typed into that. I had from iTunes U, I got iTunes applications, music, videos. Then I went onto the internet and typed in ancient India, and found WebQuest and more videos and interactive sites, just so much information. I just kept cutting and pasting and putting it all in one document space on one page so that I had it ready and available for the students. I also put on number 2 here, it says, I could have my students do that, which I'm getting a little bit better with asking for their input on just the gathering the resources piece. So what I did for Ancient China is I put together one very thorough web quest, and then the kids put together their own very thorough web quest. They sent that to me, so every year I'm just going to continue to grow from the resources that they're pulling together. So all those resources on one page, one activity around big ideas of the content, and then my job is just as facilitator. So most of the work as the teacher is up front, and then at the very end with the evaluating piece. Now the evaluation, a lot of times educators say, well, if I have my students doing all kinds of things, how am I going to evaluate it? How can I be fair? And I found as a teacher, one, the evaluation part, it's much more enjoyable when I'm looking at a total of, 5 different kinds of activities rather than the same thing over and over. So I typed in Ancient India. These are all the podcast applications, iTunes U, that popped up immediately. These are just the podcasts from there. These were the applications. These go on to the iTouches. These were free. So Gandhi, the light version, some tales, Panchatantra tales. So they got to hear a bunch of different stories. These were all the videos and the web quests that came up. All of this free. The Story of India, which was phenomenal, is on PBS. I probably could teach 3 months of Ancient India just with the PBS site. But I had all of these other ones, and then web quests that teachers had designed at the bottom. I took a project from one of the web quests. The project, basically, the idea was, all right, it was Ancient India. We know a lot about it, but we don't know everything. But wouldn't it be great if they had a time capsule buried that we can unearth and then learn so much more about their religion and culture? So their task was to create a time capsule using all of the resources. The element of depth was there, so they're going to focus on those pieces so that at the end, from their time capsule, we would know about daily life, the advancements, the origins. Because Buddhism and Hinduism, they're so broad, I wanted them to focus on one or the other. But that took a while for them to decide whether they were going to focus on Hinduism or Buddhism. Again, they were doing the work. I wasn't. These were all the resources they had to go to. So for the next 4 or 5 days, just during our during social studies, they were gathering information. They had computers out. They had their iPods out. People were running around, and I was a facilitator. I almost felt guilty. I really didn't have a lot to do because I was almost in the way. It was, cutting paper or helping with a computer problem that I could help with. The final part of it is the reflection. That's a big part. They have to reflect on their own performance. That helps me to evaluate it. And as they get going, it's a really important part for them to understand the purpose of it so that they're not just saying, oh, I did an excellent job. What I find most often is that kids are pretty hard on themselves. So they want to put, oh, I could have done better on this. I didn't like this one part. Our role as educators, we have to stay on top of what's out there. But I mentioned it. It's such a daunting task. So find the things that are really easy and pertinent to use in the classroom. Use them and allow the other kids, however many other students are around, to help inform you. There's always more to find, and it's always really exciting stuff. These game templates here on the gaming, last year when we studied ancient Hebrews, I wanted my students to get familiar with not just Jeopardy. So I gave them all of these game templates, and after we had completed all the studying, their job was to come up with a game on ancient Hebrews and cover about 4 different big ideas. And I was so impressed with the quality of the work, but not only that, I have those games on my computer for students this year to participate in if I choose to do something different with them. If we teach today, as we taught yesterday, we rob our children of tomorrow. It's pretty powerful to think about that, but yet it's something that even though in 1899, here we are in 2010, it's something we still have to focus on. I'm done. I'm going to hand this back to Lisa, and then you'll have an opportunity to ask questions.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Beth.
Yep.
So these are some of the resources that Beth used for her PowerPoint presentation. You guys are also going to, like I said, get an email tomorrow with a copy of this recording as well as the PowerPoint slides. So a lot of her slides had different sites that you could go to and visit. So I know we went through the slides a little bit quick, but you'll be able to see them tomorrow when you get that email from me. Okay. I just wanted to talk really quickly about the question and answer so that you guys will all know how to submit questions in case you signed in a little bit late tonight. So you're going to submit it in the Q&A box, and we'll address it at the very end tonight. So if you look at the top of the participant list on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see a row of icons. Go ahead and click on the question mark icon, and the Q&A panel will show up for you. And please submit the questions using that panel right there, and we'll address them at the end. So I'm going to talk really quickly about our GATE Specialized Studies program we have here at UC Irvine Extension. Our certificate program is fully online and consists of 9 quarter units. Students have the opportunity to pick from a variety of electives with different unit values to make up those 9 units. Since the program is fully online, we are open to individuals here in California as well as around the country and all over the world. We are also available on-site at schools and district offices. If you are interested in our program, please visit our website for more information and details about our course offerings. And the link is provided on this slide here. I also encourage you to join our free online gifted and talented education community. Please follow the directions on this slide to become a member, and you will gain access to valuable resources, news, and events regarding GATE. As you may already know, we are offering a credit option attached to this webinar series called the Online GATE Mentorship. The mentorship is completely online and will run as an independent study program. This flexible format will give mentees 6 months to complete all coursework. The content of the mentorship is actually based off of this webinar series. In fact, one of the assignments is watching the webinars, so if you're logged in tonight, you've already completed some of the coursework. During this course, you will be able to communicate one-on-one with a GATE mentor who has taught in the field for over 12 years. And she's taught grades 2 through 12, so she covers a broad spectrum. She will help you come up with projects and lesson plans for your classroom and will answer any specific questions or concerns you may have. By enrolling in the mentorship, you will have the opportunity to earn 1.5 units of continuing education credit, which can be applied towards our Specialized Studies program. My contact information is listed below on this slide, so please contact me with any questions about the mentorship or to obtain the official enrollment form. All right, we're going to go ahead and spend the remaining time taking some questions from attendees. If we aren't able to get to your question tonight, please feel free to email them to me and I will forward them on to Beth or use other resources we have here at Extension to try to get you an answer. So Beth, I know you're able to see the questions that have come up on the Q&A panel. Okay, was there any specific one that you wanted to address? Or we can just kind of go down the list and I can kind of skip around and just verbally feed them to you if you'd like. Okay, I think I have, let me see. Okay, we have a couple questions here about people who might not have technology in their GATE classroom and are looking, you know, to use more. Either, let's see, there's one question about using laptops in the classroom and how you can convince your district that they are valuable learning tools. Do you have an experience that you wanted to share regarding that? Oh, Beth, I think you, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Are you talking about there's a question that says, our schools block most video access. How do I convince them that these can be valuable learning tools?
Yes, there's that one, and then there's also one above that kind of addresses the same issue.
Well, I found a couple ways to use videos without like hitting the firewall, and they're legal because they're educational videos. So what I do is if you have a Mac, and I'm sure there's a way with the PC, I just don't know as well, I take the videos from home. If I'm watching something on YouTube, if I go into it says window, if I'm playing a video from YouTube, I click on activity, and it downloads the video to my desktop, and then I can email it to myself at school, or I can use Google Docs and store it on my Google Docs, or I can put it onto a disk, and then I have that video, so I'm able to show whatever videos. I haven't yet come across one that I haven't been able to show. That is that one. The math teacher one, I'm going down the list. Is that okay?
Yeah, no, that's perfect.
It says, I'm excited as a math teacher trying to understand how I can implement the ideas with math. For math, there are collaborative sites out there. In fact, there's I would say 1,000 different projects that are going on worldwide, so where students are actually able to apply real-world math skills to real situations, especially with global warming. There's lots they can do. So that's kind of something that's exciting. There's also a lot of resources that are out there that are collaborative, not just solving like a problem, but where kids are able to work together. I just came across another one from Australia. So it's a matter of spending some time and looking for what's out there. The next one is about, do I use the adopted text or do I rely on the technology? I use both the adopted text because they're there and they're excellent, and the technology. My classroom, do I have students have laptops, or do I use only a few classroom computers? I have 6 laptops in my classroom that I share with other classes. So we have specific times where it's like I'll just ask, this is my time period to use them. I have access to those almost every day. The iPods, I wrote 3 different grants for. So the first grant, I was able to get 2 iPods. The second grant, I was able to get 3 iPods, and then was able to round it out with 3 more. There are grants that are available on the Internet, but usually they're for about $250 to $500. You do have to, again, research that to find the grants, but I've been thrilled with those. That's why I'm going to eventually get those Pico projector cameras. A question came out, do you listen to the podcast first to screen for appropriateness? If it's from iTunes U, it's geared for K through 12, and I have listened to lots of the podcasts, and if it's from iTunes U, I've not yet come across anything that's inappropriate. Some of the podcasts for the college level, it hasn't been inappropriate yet, and I don't really have the ability to listen to all of them, but it's philosophical. The parents understand that we're using them for educational tools. The students understand that it's for educational tools, and there's this element of trust. And so far, it's been wonderful. 3 years with the kids on this idea of trust. If they find something, they tell me pretty fast. And when I say something, it's never anything that I'm totally shocked about. I'm glad they told me, but unfortunately, I think that age of innocence with words and with the way the media is, I'm not saying that we just go out and put it out there blatantly, but it's there. It's everywhere. A question about the new iPads that are coming out. Do you think it's a good investment for a classroom? I cannot wait for those iPads to come out. I for sure, on March 31st, I'm going to get one iPad to implement that in my classroom. It's like the iPods, but they're bigger, and so that's awesome. The most effective ways to encourage teachers to begin using some of the strategies, I think the first step would be to just to tell the students, I'm going to try this. I'm a little scared. I'm a digital immigrant, and actually I'm not even an immigrant yet. I'm on disc 1 of the language, and I'm learning the basic verbs. And so I'm going to ask all of you to help me get started with this. So I'm going to put this in first, because once you put that out there, it's so they pick it up so quickly, and now it's to a place. There are a lot of things that I was so nervous to use, and now I can't imagine teaching without it. We have a lively disagreement in our district about the educational value of PowerPoint. Ooh, wow. Maybe they were PowerPointlesses, because there are PowerPointlesses out there. PowerPoints are such phenomenal tools. If there's interactive PowerPoints that are out there, and to me, those are huge benefits. The pitfalls, I'm not sure what those are without talking further, but I know I've watched students' presentations where it's terribly painful to watch. They have to learn. They have to learn how to do a PowerPoint presentation. And I usually show them Steve Jobs' PowerPoint presentations for the how he shows at Apple. He's a phenomenal presenter with PowerPoints, where there's hardly any text on there. And now we started at the beginning of the school year. My kids were doing PowerPoint lists, and now they're really they're actually entertaining and interesting and educational at the same time.
Okay, Beth, I'm going to go ahead and interrupt you real quick. It is 9 o'clock, so we want to respect your time tonight, and we're going to go ahead and wrap up. I know that we didn't get to everyone's question. We still had a couple that people submitted a little bit late. But if you do have a question for myself or Beth, again, please email it to me. My email address and my phone number are listed on this slide that you see. And I'll go ahead and forward any questions that you email to me to Beth, and she can get you back an answer about how any of the technology or resources that she presented on tonight can be used effectively for gifted kids. So, Beth, I want to thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us tonight on such a hot topic.
It was really fun.
And I'd also like to thank all of you for logging in, and I hope you have enjoyed the entire webinar series. If you missed any of the webinars earlier this month or would like to rewatch the series at any time, the recordings will be uploaded to our OpenCourseWare site next month. For those of you who have never visited our OpenCourseWare website, it houses digital educational materials that are free and available to the public. So if you've never been to the site, please, I encourage you to go check it out. Also, please visit UCI Extension's Gate page to learn more about our program and offerings. Thank you again for your participation, and have a great night, everyone. Thank you so much.
Good night.